Hi friends, I'm Liz.
I'm Robby. Welcome back to our channel, Bookworm Couple. We are back, baby. As we promised, it was going to be a few weeks between videos. I have not read.
We are out of practice.
We are absolutely out of practice. Fun fact, this is the second time we're trying to record this video because a day or two ago we tried and I was so scatterbrained that we just had to throw it all away.
Well, so, that's also surprisingly the only time we've re-recorded a video.
That is true. Now that I think about it, yeah.
One-hit wonders.
So, honestly, pretty good track record.
Yeah.
But anyway, all of that out of the way that none of you asked for. Today we are going to be talking about the third book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series, A Court of Wings and Ruin. Almost forgot the title there.
Now you're used to saying ACOTAR.
I am used to saying ACOTAR.
The acronym's really good.
Which is a very appropriate acronym for this, and I do wonder if that was on purpose. But
she's pretty smart.
Pretty smart. I don't know.
So maybe it was.
But yeah, this was an interesting journey for me. Until like pretty much the last part of the book, it was my favorite one, no question. And then some things that happened at the end I just really didn't like very much. And also the overall journey of the book felt unnecessarily rushed to me. The pacing felt kind of all over. This feels like it was like at least 3 separate books smashed into one. I think it was 700-page book.
Smashed.
And I don't really understand why it needed to be that, personally. But I also haven't read the rest of the series, so maybe there's a big reason for it. But yeah, it very much felt like this could have had some more time to breathe and split up a little bit, just because by the end I was like, so much has happened. Yeah, I don't know. How did you feel? How does the world generally feel about this book?
I think generally, at least from what I've encountered, this is a lot of people's favorite book.
Okay.
I loved this book, but forevermore the second has always been my favorite, even during my first read through.
All right.
I loved this one, and I wonder if part of my like not favoring this as much as the second was similar to your feelings of like so many things happened, and you're like, how do I even keep up with this? I personally love this book, but I had a very similar experience of there were a few moments at the end where I was like, okay. But like still loved the book. And I do kind of think that's the nature of this style of books is fast moving, very dramatic and over dramatic, if you can say, things happening. And I love it. I eat it up. It's like reality television with fairies.
Yeah.
But I completely agree with you. I think specifically, I know like the moment in the end we had a very similar reaction to. But yeah, I love it. It's hard for me not to love an ACOTAR book. This one I felt like was very much, at least the first read through I felt like was the like healing a lot of my like inner turmoil kind of angst, because I from the very beginning kind of associated myself with Feyre a lot, and her journey in this book, specifically her emotional journey in this book, I felt like was very relatable on a very, very deep metaphorical level. Yeah,
I mean, Sarah J. Maas continues to show that she loves writing about people overcoming or just dealing with generally mental health struggles and their journeys to recover from trauma. And I think she does a decent job of writing it. Yeah,
I think that's a part of the reason why I love these books so much, regardless of the actual perfection of them as a text. For me, all of the ACOTAR books specifically were so healing on an inner level, because I think for me, and I'm sure a lot of people as well, reading a fictional character go through a over dramatization of mental health struggles can very easily subconsciously put you in that healing state, like with them. I think rather than like reading a self-help book, which is great, love them, this is more of a just like you're kind of experiencing it, and I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely think that there's a place in healing that can be helpful for like going through it with an external character.
Yeah, and especially having it be fictional, where it's watching like, you're good, like we're all good.
Watching someone overcome something you're currently struggling with, so it helps you know that it is something that you can overcome as
correct. And also in like a world that doesn't exist, so you don't necessarily have to feel the actual realities of what that is, because like you're not fighting a winged demon, you know. I mean, but you
I
might
don't know
be
your life, but
so
maybe.
You might be in your head. So I think there's that, like having it in a fantasy world makes it so accessible because it's a little bit safer, I think, to access those feelings. Anywho, continue on.
Long tangent. So all that being said, let's
Classic.
go ahead and jump into, spoiler territory. So if you haven't read A Court of Wings and Ruin, I would recommend you pause, go check it out, and then come back. We'll still be here waiting for you. But all that being said, so as I said, there's a ton of stuff that happens in this book.
So much.
I'm going to try and keep it less scatterbrained than our last attempt at this video. I'm going to start
You know
off
us, we're scatterbrained.
Yeah,
At
I
least
know.
me.
We're going to start off, I think, with the beginning of the book, the first section of the book of... I guess I'll split this entire thing up into 3 parts.
Great.
The beginning part, which is mostly Feyre and our boy Lucien.
Our boy.
As they return to the Spring Court.
Token
now, I
sad
actually
boy.
got really excited when reading this section because when I realized it was going to be about Feyre's political maneuverings and machinations to try and bring down the Spring Court from within, have all of the guards and armies, I guess, lose faith in Tamlin, and also destroy Ianthe's place in her religion, or just take over the religion. Fascinated by that. Honestly loved it. If the whole
Brilliant
book was
work,
that,
Feyre.
I would not have
brilliant.
minded it. And that's kind of in a different style of book.
Yes.
Feyre
I
at the
think
Spring
that's exactly
Court, and then her and Lucien escaping and finally getting back to Valaris would be one entire 700-page book.
Yeah, you could probably
easily do that.
cliffhanger it with them where they're in the Winter Court.
Exactly.
Moment.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. No, they literally get there, and you can cliffhanger it with Cassian and Azriel showing up to save them.
Their Avengers moment.
Yes, absolutely. And it's fine that it's not a book. It's just, I really loved specifically the scene in which Feyre manipulates the religious ritual that's going on.
Brilliant.
And
I was reading it
basically
being
sets
like,
herself up to be
brilliant.
like, I don't know, the cauldron blessed or
Yeah.
something. And I was like, this is great.
I remember
want more of this.
The scene specifically where she figures out where she needs to stand so that the sun
Yes,
shines on her. I was like,
that's specifically the scene. That's specifically the scene I'm talking about.
maniacal, manipulative.
And the reason we're talking about the same scene is because, unfortunately, it's the only one in the book where anything like that happens.
Yeah.
So I guess, when I say I think the entire book, every section of the book could have used more space to breathe, is we only get really one example of her doing all of her things to try and destabilize the court. Which is fine, because it shows us what's going on, but, she did the religion thing to mess with Ianthe once. She, let Tamlin... riled up Tamlin, let him beat her and didn't heal once. She tried to step in and save a guard once. So it's one example of each thing that she's doing, which works, and it gets the message across, but it could have been a much more, determined thing, and we could have gotten much more into the weeds in and this is just my personal preference as a reader, but if we got way more into the weeds of how she's trying to destabilize the High Priestess's religion, I would have found that fascinating.
Yeah.
From a world building perspective and from a plot perspective. I understand that this isn't that style of book.
Yeah,
really,
I think...
But,
I don't know that the audience would maintain attention because you're so used to Sarah J. Maas's books moving so fast, but I don't disagree with you that, because I also found that, really awesome to read and fantasy.
It was...
No.
I don't know what you were
Fascinating.
trying to say.
There's the word.
There it is. But overall, this section of the book I really did enjoy. If I wish it just had stayed a little bit longer, to be honest. But it makes sense that it didn't because of the amount. The part 2 of this book is just set up because there's so much going on. But I did really enjoy also kind of the dichotomy between the last time she was at the Spring Court and now, and how much power she has, even if she's hiding it at this point. The last time she was here, she was essentially almost suicidal, so depressed, and here she's missing her mate, and missing her home and her friends and her family, but she has power and faith in herself that she knows she's going to be able to escape of this, but that's never something she's really afraid of.
Yeah, the power
which is
awesome.
it's an interesting. It's not really focused on, but it's an interesting healing moment for us as a reader, kind of seeing her in this place, but in her own power, which is nice.
Yeah. But playing into what they think
exactly,
she is,
exactly,
and knowing she's a high lady, Tamlin.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. Tamlin is Tamlin, though he gets his own redemption arc in this book, which is fun. He's a little bit less of a tampon in this book, shall we say. Ianthe is awful, and we really dive into, in the beginning of this book how truly terrible she is, and we dive into more like what she's done specifically to Lucian, and we see that scene. Not our boy Lucian. Lucian has an interesting arc in this book. I wish they hadn't sidelined him in like the end, especially because it turns out at the end of the book it wouldn't have mattered. He didn't need to go anyway. But
give us a Lucian develop.
I'm glad that we got to see him more. I knew, of course, he was going to leave with her because he's our boy. There's no way you're convincing me that Lucian's bad. He's the best, and he is my favorite character. But I mean, terrible scene with Ianthe forcing herself upon him. Now, I will say, this kind of brought one of my biggest problems with this entire section of the book to the fore, in that entire scene, and what stops Feyre from leaving, other than saving this person who is her friend, though they also spend like a weird amount of time having her like trying to convince herself that she hates him, and I'm like, Lucian didn't do much.
I don't really know. Lucian was your best friend from the start?
Yeah, but anyway.
Okay. Should have done with that.
Yeah, she and she stops because she doesn't want that to happen to Lucian, obviously. But then she, in a very intense scene, forces herself into Ianthe's mind and forces Ianthe to physically disfigure herself, which is pretty graphic.
Yeah, Feyre gets violent.
She gets very violent. There's a bit. Also, Sarah J. Maas has a thing about drowning people on dry land that probably needs to be discussed, but that's later. Ianthe. It's all about consent, and when she's in Ianthe's mind, it's about like Ianthe convincing herself that these people actually want her and are just playing coy, and it's all about sexual assault and consent, and because that section of the book is so short, it's, at least in my opinion, impossible not to remember Feyre has been breaking into other people's minds without consent, and it's an invasion of another kind, like, all over the place. And it seems like the author thinks that we're just supposed to be cool with it because they're unnamed sentries and guards.
Yeah.
But at least I couldn't help but be like, it's not the same. It's not like she's actually, like, raping these people, but she is invading them in another way.
Yeah.
Within, like, chapters. Literally within pages.
That's a really good point, because I wouldn't have thought that at all.
Yeah,
because we're very focused on the physical assault.
Sure.
And so I think, I think that's a really interesting point, because I truly never thought that. I was like, Feyre, go, do what you gotta do.
The only reason I think it really stuck out to me is because it happened, Feyre did it so many times, and when she first did it, I went, ooh.
Icky.
Ooh, icky. And also then later in the book, she spends some time talking to Rhys about how she felt really bad about how she invaded Lucian's mind. She never feels bad about invading these sentries' minds. She never talks about them.
Because that's not her buddy.
Yeah, but it feels very weird.
I mean, I think they do talk about that with specifically the mind control, like the mind speak stuff, of like, it is a assault unless someone allows you in. And I think you're right, like there's only the people that they care about. They feel like that is an intimate break of trust, whereas you're not going to see the people again. I mean, it's
there's no good way to spin it.
There's not. You're right, it's the same thing.
And the thing is, again, you could have made this section longer and had her either doing literally anything else to make her machinations happen, like her going into people's minds and either hiding memories or creating fake ones is just the cheap, fast way to do what she was wanting to do. She could have done it over time with not such invasive methods, or we could have at least spent some time having her feel guilty about it, and we just didn't, because we just skipped past that part. So that was kind of my biggest issue, because I was just like, this is... Okay. I mean, look, the scene with Ianthe, I loved. Great scene.
Yeah.
But I really, part of the impact was a bit dulled, because I was like, Feyre, stop talking about it, Feyre, just go. You did the same thing, kind of, so let's just move on. And the other major players in that section, other than Alice, who totally knows that Feyre is, not into it, and she's like, I'm leaving. And I was like, okay, of course Alice knows what's up.
Come on, Alice.
But Jurian, who has a really interesting arc in this book, actually.
I think he's a fascinating character.
Yeah, fascinating character. And then the two twins whose names I've literally already forgotten because Sarah J. Maas doesn't like to keep her villains alive and doesn't like them to have an impact. And so, yeah, they just, the concept of them was interesting, but then of course they both died immediately. And I will say,
Very Twilight too.
Yes, they're
like,
very
twins.
Twilight. Yes, the scene in which she fights them and is winnowing around, that was really cool. But yeah, I don't really have much to say about that.
One of the first times
kind of lame and disappointing.
We get to see Feyre like in her full power too, just being like, I got this.
Absolutely. And then they run away.
Bye-bye.
And this was another section where I was like, oh. She set up a device in which, like, when they got to the Autumn Court, Feyre suddenly got access to her Autumn Court powers again because the Faebane is wearing off. And I was like, oh man, are we going on like a buddy journey to so she can get her powers back in every single one?
I kind of love that idea.
No, I did too, and I thought that's what we were going to do. No, her flight with Lucian is very short. I did like the fact that we got to interact with his brothers again and see how cruel and terrible they were, which set up Eris' plotline for later in the book, which I'm honestly not sold on, but and did set up Lucian's big reveal later, which I had spoiled for me, which was kind of lame.
But, I know, of all things, I think that's an interesting thing you got spoiled.
Don't Google anything about any book you ever read.
Really?
I made a rookie
Unless you
mistake,
finish it.
guys. I made a rookie mistake here and got spoiled.
You're like, how's my boy Lucian doing?
Exactly. Well, I don't remember what I was looking up, but it's, because I think it was like a character name, and it went, Lucian's dad, and I went, God damn it. I was like, but anyway... Yeah, the flight section was cool, the chase was thrilling, and Cassian and Asriel, like, bamfing in at the end and being fully healed just magically was cool and thrilling, but I was just like, oh, well, that was pretty short. I guess we're not... And also because, like, they get to the Winter Kingdom, and she suddenly gets her ice powers back, and then, like, a page later, they're like, okay, she's got everything. And I'm like, oh, fine, whatever. And also, I mean, I like seeing the different kingdoms. I wish we had spent more time in...
I know, that's something
I hope that they do
want.
that in future books. Because that's a fun part of the world building that she's done that we have not been able to really see at all. And now comes really the middle section of the book with all the characters. And look, I loved being back in Valaris. It was great. Seeing all the characters again was really fun. I like, for the most part, I like everyone's plotline in this. Nesta and Elaine have a ton to do, which is great. There are some things I really, really enjoyed. The scene with all of the High Lords was very cool. Yeah, most of my problems don't come in until the last part of the book, to be honest. So I guess I'm kind of just going to go through, like, the different characters here. Sure. Just because there's all this stuff happening. Well, I mean, we could start with Feyre and Rhysand. Rhysand, I feel like, he does a lot, but there's not too much to say about what he does. The only exception for me is the Night Court, where he didn't tell anyone about, like, his plan to ally with Mor's dad and Eris and stuff. And
it's very Aelin of him.
Yes. The whole thing, it literally just felt like he could have just told them. And it feels like keeping secrets for the sake of causing conflict in the novel. And that's one of my least favorite tropes in books.
Hate it, but it
and I know that has to happen all the time to keep books interesting. But that's just... So that's really the only thing that Rhys did that I really didn't enjoy. Otherwise, I mean, Rhys's character is essentially there to be like the stand-in, obviously, for like world's most supportive partner.
Yeah, 100%.
And
he's there to lift
Feyre up, and it was and give her great orgasms. It was interesting to see Sergio Maas write him navigate her being a high lady and trying to do a mixture of like defending and supporting her, because of course he has to be like super territorial as a male, and but also allowing her to stand up for herself and take her own power. So that was kind of the most interesting part of his arc for me. Yeah, we'll talk about everything at the end later, I guess. But Feyre's really just so busy in this book. She's just running around, doing a bunch of stuff. Her relationship with Elaine and Nesta is interesting. I guess we can talk about both Elaine and Nesta now, too. I love Elaine. Her depression and trauma and processing through that, I think, is well done in this book and very true to her character. The way she starts finally coming out of it is the simple things, which is what she was like in the first book, which is what made me love her so much, excuse me. The baking bread and working in the garden again kind of brings her back to life. Using her hands. Yeah, just doing simple things, not needing to save the world.
I think that's a way to heal.
Yeah, exactly. And we get to go see her estranged ex-fiance, and that was exactly what I expected to happen in how that go, except for the fact that Jurian showed up, and that was when it was like revealed that Jurian's not a bad
guy. Good guy,
and he's also like not crazy, and he doesn't actually care about Miriam and Drakon, which I think is really funny because then the end of the book, Miriam and Drakon spend a lot of time trying to kill him, and he's like, I don't care.
He's like, let me alone.
Leave me alone.
Didn't do that.
I honestly didn't believe that he was good. When that reveal came out, he's gonna betray them, and he didn't. So
well, and you get later into the book, and you kind of see like, I feel like there's a scene when they're going to save Elaine after she's been kidnapped, where you just kind of see how tired he is.
Yeah,
and I think that makes sense for the character. That's when I started. I agree with you. That's when I started to actually believe. I was like, okay, he's good. He's tired. Like he's tired of all this nonsense. That's why he's like done all the things he's done, and why he's still in the place that he's in now is because he's just exhausted of fighting this fight, but he's dedicated to the fight.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, I really like that we got more of Elaine. We got to see her fiance, we got to see her potential father-in-law, and we got to see them both be dicks.
Total dicks. They suck. And
interesting watching her relationship with Lucian kind of bloom and also not. And also, I thought very interestingly, Asriel. They have a very interesting relationship, and I'm torn between thinking that she's going to end up with Lucian because, obviously, or she's going to end up with Asriel just because Sarah J. Maas wants to prove that not all mates need to end up together.
I have the very same
it's going to be one of those two,
The internet is absolutely torn.
And whoever doesn't end up with Elaine, they're going to end up with Briar. I don't know what the deal with that is. That made me roll my eyes so hard.
Briar?
The chick that they saved from the camp.
Oh.
I just was like, what is this? Like, why are we doing this? Maybe I'm totally wrong. I don't know.
She exists.
If she doesn't play a part in later books. She's human.
Yeah, okay.
So she was one of the children of the whatever.
Oh, yeah, the blessed.
Yeah. I guess speaking of Elaine's rescue and Briar, that entire section, okay, I'm sorry, that was a little bit aggressive. That entire section made me roll my eyes super hard because she got stolen and then she got saved so fast.
Yeah, that's your
the
sister.
Only thing, well, it was just, it wasn't hard. That in itself is the inciting incident for like a whole book, and it took 2 chapters. It made me roll. And when she was like, we can't leave without that random human who was like being flayed alive, I was like, okay, like, great, fine. And the only, I will say, the chase at the end and the jump off the cliff and the escape, that was truly thrilling.
Epic.
Tamlin showing that, Tamlin, of course, being on their side, which they honestly should have expected at that point, after he has been like, I've been secretly working for you the whole time. That part was thrilling. The entire setup and stuff, I was just like, I don't need this. And when they saved Briar, I was like, well, this character is going to be relevant somehow, because otherwise I just can't. I can't imagine why you would bother. Yeah, so that's what... Oh, and Elaine's a seer, which I did guess before it was revealed. With the Raven thing, I was like, this sounds like prophecies.
Like,
and then those 2 assassins showed up and I went, ha-ha! I got it! So I'm really interested to see how her relationship with Asriel...
Don't underestimate
specifically.
girl.
Oh, and also, don't worry, I know you were scared. Elaine is even more beautiful than before, and guess what? So is Nesta. She is described as devastating.
Yeah, Nesta's the
Now, I will say, I did write in my notes, the most interesting thing I think Sarah J. Maas could do is introduce a normal-looking person among all these hotties.
I think
just like a regular... and Sarah J. Maas doesn't agree with you, because when she turns Elaine back into a human with the glamour, she describes her hair as mousy, and she describes her as, essentially, she doesn't use the word, but she describes her as plain.
No. I hate plain.
So not everyone is beautiful in Sarah J. Maas's world, and yeah, man, everyone's got to be so hot, and it just makes me laugh, because I'm just like, this is... whatever.
Because you're supposed to see yourself in this book, and you're supposed to see yourself as devastatingly hot.
I don't see myself as devastatingly hot.
Well, try.
No.
Robby.
But oh, thank you. So are you.
Thank you. Okay, how do you feel about Nesta?
Nesta sucks. Honestly, I don't really know how else to say it. Nesta's the worst. I mean, she's an interesting character, but I don't like her as a character, and I'm sure that I hope at least with Sarah J. Maas's penchant for talking about people dealing with trauma, we're eventually going to get something big from her, I would guess, because she is very closed off and very prickly. She's just... It's somewhat funny to me anytime I read a character who's just a dick to everyone for no reason, even when they're being nice. And the thing is, it kind of makes Nesta almost like a farce of a character to me, because I can't take her seriously. Because literally all she does is just be... I can't curse, but be crappy to people. And it gets kind of old. I will say, though, her plot was very interesting. And... they did. There's a lot of things that happen in this book that are like big foreshadowing of like she's got some power. We don't know what it is, and that's tied directly to Amren and also like all of the ancient elder beings that are brought into this, which is one of my favorite parts of this book. And it was something that was hinted at in the last one, and it was something that was foreshadowed heavily in the beginning of this one, and then paid off, which I really, really appreciated. I love world building, I love gods and different planes, and eldritch horror beings, and things like that. I think that that's all great, and I'll read about it all day. And so I really, really enjoyed that, and that was a large part of Nesta's plot. Nesta and Cassian also, obviously... becoming a thing. I'm glad that at least it started like being acknowledged that it was a thing towards the end. If it had just been her being mean to him the whole time for no reason, when he was mostly just pretty nice to her and was trying to help her, it would have gotten very old. So I'm glad that in her Nesta way she started showing that she cared for him. But yeah, I need the other shoe to drop for her. I get it. She's mean, and she doesn't let anyone in, and she's got walls up, but inside there's a heart of gold. I'm tired of it.
I don't know if it's a heart of gold. I think this is I have read all the books, so I obviously have a lot more knowledge than you do of this world. But now having read them, I think that Feyre, Elaine, and Nesta are three depictions of people dealing with depression and anxiety in three different ways. Because I think those are all ways that that humans will deal with depression. Obviously, these are extreme behaviors for a lot of them, but I think that's why I could never like actively dislike these characters, because I'm like, I see a bit of myself in all of them, and I think that's kind of the point. And specifically, I know a lot of people have very, very intense feelings about Nesta. I think I don't know if I'm in the rarity there, but
like they don't like her.
Yeah, a lot of people really dislike Nesta or really love Nesta.
Interesting.
I personally am a big Nesta fan, but again, like I said, I like the depiction of her dark side, and similar to like Elaine and the way that she deals with it, and Feyre, obviously we're in Feyre's head in most of these books, so you kind of get to heal with her in the way that she heals, but it's interesting seeing like Elaine and how she's so fraught and how those feelings like come out of her. Yeah,
so anyway, I did like Nesta's storyline, and I don't hate Nesta, I just think she's a very one-note character, and I'm waiting for the growth to come in. Let's see, and I guess we can go jump into Amren, because their storylines are necessarily connected. I loved Amren's storyline in this until the very end, in which I absolutely hated it. But, yeah. But, Amren's an angel. That's just, there's no other word for it. They're like, what are you? And that was actually one of the best parts of Nesta, as Nesta would challenge Amren, and that was interesting when she asked her questions. I was like, okay, great, cool.
And I do think that, again, is that similar, like, of, like, that hardness needs hardness to, like, but with him, whereas I feel like a lot of people may be more gentle or, like, trying different, and you see this of, like, no, you need someone to give it to her, and the both of them need the both of them, like, need that. Their personalities crave that.
Yes.
They have, like,
someone does give it to Amren later.
Yes,
But
Amren gets it.
Amren does get some. But her just being, I was the messenger for a god. I was like, oh, so you're an angel. Great. Cool. Awesome. Love it. I liked her storyline. Yes, most of what happens with Amren happens at the very end. So there's not too much to say here in this section of the book, but I generally liked her, the reveal of what she is, her working with Nesta, and also just all the other associated disgusting and terrifying creatures that are not the same as her, but let's assume somewhat similar at least. Bryaxis, that was fun.
Yeah.
And then both the Bone Carver and the Weaver.
Yeah, we love our creepy old monsters.
We love our creepy old monsters. The fact that they're like they're old gods of death. I was like, yeah,
cool.
Sign me
Let's
up.
go.
Let's do it. So I really enjoyed that. That was just explored a lot more. We even got to go back to the Weaver and see her again, and then Ianthe got murdered, we presume. I think Ianthe's gonna come back somehow, but anyway. But yeah, yeah, all of that I really, really enjoyed. That was probably my favorite part of this book, which is good because also some of my favorite bits of the last few books were kind of more the slice of life things, especially the second book. We get we get some slice of life stuff in Valaris. We don't really get that in this book because too many things are going on, which I did miss. Yeah. They talk a lot about how wonderful Valaris is and how they hear the children laughing in the streets, but we don't actually really go and do anything in Valaris. There's no slower scenes, which made me a bit sad. Still really enjoyed the time we spent there. More Asriel and Cassian are still a hot mess. I did really enjoy the fact that Helion, I believe. Helion was like, I want to have a foursome. Yes. And has apparently been knocking on that door for a long time.
I'm obsessed with it.
And I was like, guys, and I also like that Farrah was like, why haven't they?
Yeah, like you got, what are you doing?
Exactly.
Sounds like so much fun.
Yeah, I was like, exactly, bring on the group sex scenes. But lame, they did not.
No.
And that was kind of, to me, the crux of the more Asriel Cassian storyline in this book. It was, I will say, the most interesting part of Cassian's storyline, in my opinion. Of course, he's trying to court Nesta with not high levels of success, but he is also, like, there was a scene where he was hurt, and Nesta came to him, and then Moore comes in and he like stepped away, and Rhys acknowledged the fact that like Cassian needs to make some decisions. Yeah, so I thought that was a very interesting turn on the on just that entire thruple relationship front. Asriel during the High Lord meeting, of course, trying to kill, who was it? Eris or Baron?
I think it's Baron.
Whatever. Baron, who's just a caricature of a douche.
Yeah, gotta have one.
Yeah. There's really nothing interesting to say about him. He's just mean and old. I don't really love the fact that they're like, wait, Eris might not actually be that bad. I'm like, oh, God, not everyone needs to be redeemed, but whatever. And I love a ginger. We have enough ginger. Okay, Lucian is our ginger.
Just
don't try and replace him.
I would never. I love Lucian.
No, we can have as many gingers as we want, but we already have our favorite ginger.
Okay, that's
we don't need to try and... Eris, no one likes you. And Lucian, you know, the reveal that he is actually Helion's... I already forgot what you told me what it was.
I say Helion, I'm not sure if that's
Helion's son. I was like, oh, that's cool. I had that spoiled for me 2 days ago. Dang it. But anyway... yeah, the Asriel Moore storyline, I'm honestly really glad with where it ended up, because the bit in the middle where she sleeps with Helion, and I was just like, I can't deal with this anymore. Like, this drama is annoying to me. You guys are, like, centuries old. Grow up.
That's 100%.
I was just like, this was interesting in one book. It's overstayed its welcome. I don't need it anymore. It's interesting because... yeah, they're supposed to be centuries old, but you basically forget that because they're portrayed as like hot 20-somethings. And yeah, and then in the second book, you're like, okay, wait, you're actually supposed to be like 600 years old. Grow up. Like, you are acting like a child. And so I more coming out to Feyre at the end, I really enjoyed. Makes so much sense for her character. Also wonderful to finally get some LGBTQ plus representation in these books, which is very needed. Yeah, so I really loved that. I'm very interested to see where that goes. Maybe she's going to end up with... maybe she'll end up with Briar. Someone's got to end up with Briar. Briar better play some kind of role. Or she's going to end up with the hot sister of the Winter Court.
Oh, yeah. Bessie.
Queen, who also loved her. Yeah. She was great.
Such a sass.
Why am I not highlighting?
Literally, excuse me?
Loved her.
Excuse me?
She was very funny.
Yeah,
she's got a hot sister. I was like, yeah, all right, get in there more.
Yeah, we want love for more of that.
Yeah, so, but Asriel, I can't wait for her to tell Asriel, so Asriel can stop being so sad and maybe fall in love with someone else. Maybe Elaine, who knows? Maybe Briar.
So many theories.
So many theories. Those are my 2 theories right now. But yes, so I did like where that storyline ended up, but in the middle I was like, this is rough, man. I'm not a fan. of this right now. And before we go on to the very end of the book, rip the Suriel, man. Is it really an ACOTAR book if the Suriel doesn't show up? But
that
oh
scene,
my god.
I cried.
I got really sad.
I was like, my creepy friend is dying.
I got really sad too. I went,
So
well, also mostly because he just went, you were kind to me. And I went, oh, God.
Well, I think that's also the beauty, and I think I'll have to show you some of, like, the TikTok of the Suriel, because the Suriel has just become social media's bestie, tea-spilling bestie. And so I think, and it's beautiful, again, like, it's described as this such, like, disgusting creature, but for Feyre to kind of have a friendship with them and see them and be kind to them, and then have them die. It's literally gives me, like, Dobby wants to be with his friends vibes. Like, don't do that.
Yeah. No, rip. Absolute rip. I was so sad. I was like, whoa, okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to get exposition dumps to move the plot forward in future books? Yeah. No idea. Have to come up with some other convoluted plot device. But let's talk about the end, because we've been talking for a very long time now. We haven't gotten to the last battle, essentially, which is what the entire end of the book is. And this is where it kind of all falls apart for me. Yeah, it's really cool, but this is written like it's the last fight. This is written like it's the last book in a series, and it's not. And it also didn't need to be. Like, clearly this is the end of part 1 of ACOTAR. That is cool.
That's very
but it's a
much
700-page book in which so much happens that we've had to be talking about it for, what, I don't know, 45 minutes already, and we haven't even gotten to the end of the book.
That's a very fair point.
And it's just like, you know you're writing more books. What's the like, you could have just... Anyway. So, and there are also a few things that I really didn't like that happened in this. One, King of Hybern, gone. Sarah J. Maas, write one villain. Also, give them a name. A first name, maybe.
David.
Yeah.
Hybern.
Whatever, I don't care. Like, Bob Hybern, I don't care. But, yeah, it's... The fighting scenes were cool. She loves bringing in unexpected armies at the end. It's like portals, it's just like Throne of Glass. It's super fun. You know, Miriam and Drakon show up. Of course they did. Daddy Archeron comes back. Spring break is over, baby. Dad's back, and he brought another keg. Like, it's just... It was crazy. I literally, I gasped and immediately just started laughing. Because I was like, this is... the most bonkers thing. I will say I did get very emotional as well with the names of the ships and stuff. It was very sad. Now I'm going to talk about something that I hated. He got immediately killed and never got to talk to any of his daughters. And then during the after battle, so many people just spent time talking to us about how great he is and what he did. For starters, they're like, he immediately found out the queens were going to betray everyone, and then got his own army, and the Prince of Merchants got his own fleet. And I was like, I want to read that book. That sounds more interesting than what I'm reading right now. So and then also it's revealed that Lucian essentially went off to do that, but that he had already done it, and I went, okay, great. Which bummed me out, because I was like, okay, so Lucian just could have been with us the whole time. Fine, great. But yeah, I really hated the fact that he just got murdered.
I think that's kind of the point.
Yes, I know, but it's...
Because I think it's supposed to make it more of an emotionally devastating thing.
It didn't make me sad, it just made me
Oh my god,
annoyed.
it made me heartbroken, especially for Nesta. I mean, it made me so sad, because she's the eldest daughter, holds the most frustration with this man of them, and he comes on his ship bearing her name, and then gets killed before they even get to speak. I think it's there for the devastating fact that we don't get any time with him. That's the sad part. That's the heart-wrenching part. No?
No, I didn't really I didn't really think it was sad. I thought it was annoying, and I think the main reason for that is because Amryn came back, and all the main characters have ridiculous plot armor. There's a point where, Cassian and Nesta go to, distract the King of Hybern, and they're all like, this might be goodbye. And I literally was like, well, now I'm taken out of this. You're not gonna die. She's not gonna kill you. I didn't for 1 second think any of the major characters were actually in danger. So Sarah J. Maas is just gonna kill some of the side characters to try and pull at our heart. It feels manipulative, and it feels lazy. Honestly, you kill one of your major characters, and you did, and then you brought her back.
Well, and not just her.
Oh my god, yeah, that I can't even talk about that either. Literally, when they got to the point where they were going to, sorry, we're skipping all the way to the end.
That's okay. No, that's it. I think that's the biggest moment.
Yeah,
this we should just touch on the King Hybern.
No, I got a lot of stuff more to say. I know I did.
Okay.
I will talk quickly. At the end of the battle, when the cauldron had broken, and she needed to repair it, I was like, no, you do. I don't. none of this needs to be happening. Like, I didn't need any of it. Amren's sacrifice was really cool. I will also say, Amren, like, the way that it was originally portrayed that Amren, like, lied and was going to betray them, and that chapter left off on a cliffhanger, I went, if Amren has actually been out for herself this whole time, that is the best decision Sarah J. Maas has ever made. But then it just turned out that she was like, I lied, I'm gonna have to die. And I was like, okay, fine. Like, okay. That annoyed me because I was like, whoa, what is going on? Yeah. And then I was like, oh, that's boring, honestly. It was! Because I was like, whoa! My mind exploded with all these possibilities of like, Amren's gonna turn herself into a god and maybe she's gonna be the bad guy. That's super cool. And then she was just like, no, I have to sacrifice myself. And I went, okay. And then they brought her back. And I was just, like, it really pissed me off. It, like, this is one of the few books, especially like Sarah J. Maas books that I've read, where I hated the ending. And the rest of the book I actually quite liked. And it's tough to judge the book because I left it with such a sour note. Yeah, and then Rhys, they have to bring Rhys back, and I was like, you're not killing Rhys. Like, this isn't a, this isn't like an interesting or emotional moment for me. No. I know you're not killing Rhys. This is a waste of pages.
And also, like, I mean, because I felt exactly the same way. It's like, it happens literally so fast. He dies, and within 2 to 4 pages, he's back. And I felt exactly the same, because I was like, I don't believe for 1 second you're killing this man you've made us all fall in love with. Yeah. And so it was very, I felt the same. I felt very frustrated. And I know people are like, that scene made me cry. I'm like, what? Why?
No.
Because you knew he wasn't going to die.
Yeah, he's not going to die.
Like, there's no way.
Not, I mean, the only, the parts that...
And especially because we had, like, that and Amren, and all together I was like,
Yeah, Amren, I just...
You just didn't need it.
You didn't need it.
If you're not going to, like, kill them, don't.
Yeah, and that's why I was annoyed with killing, because I was like, you're clearly killing the dad in the place of killing any other major character that would actually have emotional impact. And I had already mourned for Amren when she was dead, and I went, wow, what a great ending. That's really cool. And then she brought her back, and I'm like, way to cheap. And I do not subscribe to the value that you have to kill characters to create stakes. That is not true. But if you are going to create stakes by killing characters, you need to leave them dead.
Do it.
It was messy. And again, like you said, Rhys comes back in like 2 pages, and that is a poster child for the problem of this book. Everything happens so fast, and there's no reason for it that I can see. The next book is a novella. I don't know what it's about, but you could have made it a full-length novel and had the beginning of it be this battle, and everything could have taken more time. It just one idea off the top of my head. It's... I mean, look, her battle scenes are really interesting to read. Again, there's multiple times where people are drowned on dry land, so something's going on there.
I don't. The
king of Tarkin drowns an entire army on dry land, and Feyre shoves a water snake down someone's throat and nose and lets them like convulse and die. And I will say, like, this book is the war book, and she does not shy away from making more dark and violent, and I think that that is the right choice. So reading this section of the book, I did enjoy. Yeah, the ending just killed me. I thought Vasa, the introduction of Vasa, was very interesting. I'm assuming she's going to play a major role going forward, because of course, you gotta kill the big bad, so King of Hybern, whose name we don't know, is dead.
Was killed by your girl.
By a land. And that was a cool scene, however.
I went,
yeah, that was a really cool scene. I did like that she's the one who killed him, and then Nesta, like, sawed his head off, which was intense. But I think if you've watched enough of our videos, you probably know what I'm gonna say. Power levels, man. What are they? What's going on here? We never really touch on what makes the King of Hybern so strong, but we talk a lot about, like, his spells and stuff. And I'm like, okay. But then earlier, the Weaver gets up to him and, like, leaps at him. And then he just reaches out and breaks her neck.
Yeah, the Weaver who's also supposed to be a godlike
The Weaver who is supposed to be a literal god of death. He breaks her neck and then throws her to some dogs. And they're like, well, that's enough to kill her. And I was like, okay. I mean, they also blasted the Bone Carver. I love that the cauldron just turned into the Death Star at one point, which I thought was really funny. Yes. And I was like, oh, whoa, rip the Bone Carver, that's sad. But also, you couldn't really have had the Bone Carver and the Weaver, like, running around. That would have, well, whatever. But yeah, and then it's unclear. Like, so why couldn't anyone just kill him then? If he's just, like, could just be stabbed in the neck and die like a normal person, it's built up like he's this impossible to kill, immortal, invincible king. And instead he just gets stabbed, and it was a great scene, and I really enjoyed it, but it happened so quickly. Again, things happening so quickly one after the other, so quickly after he had just killed a literal god, that I was like, what is going on? Why was he so strong in the first place? Why, if Elaine, who is a seer and a created High Fae, but still just kind of a regular High Fae who has no combat training, can just walk up behind him and stab him in the throat, and that will kill him, how is he still alive? Like, there's no way a threat this big should be able to be killed that easily.
Yeah, that's right. I think that part of the fast-moving plot is like, don't look at this. Yes,
exactly. And yeah, so I didn't enjoy that. But I will say, you know what I did really enjoy at the beginning of it? Reese has a great speech. It's very, like, Marvel, just mentions everyone. I was like, this is good. This is good stuff.
Nailed
He's talking about how much he loves everyone, and how, you know, the power of friendship and the power of love. And I was like, yeah, this is great.
And releases his whole self.
Yes, exactly. It turns into a literal monster, which was cool. Yeah. I liked, and Helion did that as well. That was very fun. Yeah.
We didn't talk about the Ouroboros. It's a pretty big part of the book.
I guess.
You didn't like it.
I didn't
loved
really like it. Because it was literally, like, I knew this was what it was going to be, but it's just like, this thing has existed for eons, and everyone goes insane when they look at it, but Feyre, because she accepts who she is.
She does, like, but I also do think there's a point of her being human. Like having lived as a human. Oh, that's a good point.
I didn't think about it that way. I like that.
Having had to have looked at more of her looked at more of her faults than a Fae, and so I think that's part of it. And again, that's when I stopped, because I was like, oh my god, yes.
That's a good point. I didn't really think about it that way. I do like that. That makes it a little bit better for me. But yeah, I was just kind of like, okay. Sure, whatever. But I got the Bone Carver in, which was like, I was sad when the Bone Carver died, even though he's a maniac.
I know he's a creepy maniac, but we love him.
And yeah, I mean, and I'm assuming that the next books are going to move over to the continent, which I am excited to see.
Really excited for you to read Frost and Starlight.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, look, the overall, middle of the book, loved it. Beginning of the book, loved it, honestly. Like, wish that they were both longer. End of the book, absolutely not. No. Yeah, which really sucks, because I really enjoyed it. I have so many questions, for Sarah J. Maas, just being like, what was the thought process behind all of this, and why were you in such a rush, I guess, is my major question.
I think that's honestly,
because this book would still have been incredibly fast-paced if you had, moved the final battle scene to another book and stretched out it still would have been super fast-paced with the amount of things that are going on.
That's fair. All right, what do you want to rate this one out of?
We already did Cauldrons. We can't do Cauldrons again.
Do Ouroboros?
Sure, mirror. It's a big mirror. Yeah, Ouroboros. We'll do Ouroboroses. How many out of 5 would you give that? How many Ouroboroses out of 5 would you give this?
You go first. Or do you want me to go?
I want you to go, because I think I might be updating mine in real time.
Okay, that's fine. I would give this a 4 just because it's hard for me to rate ACOTAR anything less than a 5, but because I didn't like the ending as much, I kind of But I do really like this book. I'd give it a 4.
I think this is such a weird thing to say, and I don't know if this even makes sense. I think I'd give this book a 3.5, but I think I like it better than the other books. I gave the second book a 4. I think that book is better written I think this book has big flaws in the way it is written, but I like it better.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I don't know. If you've read it, let us know what you think down in the comments below. Did you feel like it was rushed? What are your favorite parts? What are your least favorite parts? Is it your favorite book in the series? Because right now, it is my favorite book in the series. I just think it has a lot of problems. And it's so unfortunate that the ending I think, didn't really stick the landing. But I am still excited to see what's going on in the future, and I hope eventually Sarah J. Maas will have the courage to actually kill one of her major characters. Who knows? But that's really everything from me, so thank you all so much for watching, and
we'll see you on our next adventure.